Welcome to Super Great Kids Stories, fun tales to make you laugh and cry, with some of the best storytellers from around the world. Recommended for ages 5 to 105. I'm Kim, and I love stories. Our super great thanks in this episode go to Mum Furqan and her sons who are 5 and 6. They gave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And thank you to Jessica and Jacob, whose family very kindly gave us a donation on Ko-fi. And here's something new. If you'd like to support Super Great Kids Stories with a regular subscription, you'll be able to access all our stories without the adverts. Visit our Ko-fi page, that's Ko-fi, at kofi.com/Super Great Kids Stories. Now, imagine coming home one day to find a monster in your house. That's what happened to poor old Hare in this trickster story from South Sudan. But who's the trickster? Have a listen to our storyteller Pamela Marre and you'll find out.
Once upon a time, there was a hare who lived in a little house at the bottom of a tree. Every morning early, Hare liked to go out for a run before coming back to make her breakfast. But one morning, she returned to her house, and as she was turning the knob on her front door, a large voice came out from the inside and boomed, "Go away!" Hare jumped back from the door in alarm. "But this is my house! Who are you?" And the voice replied, "I am the long one. I eat trees. I trample on elephants. And if you don't go away, I will trample on you." "Oh!" wailed Hare, and she trembled in fright. "A monster has taken over my house. What shall I do?" And she sat down in front of her door and burst into tears. Just then Jackal happened to come walking by. "Good morning, Hare. Why are you crying out here on the ground?" asked Jackal. "Oh," cried Hare, "there's a monster in my house and I daren't go in there." "Come, come," said Jackal. "There are no monsters. I'll soon have whoever it is out of there." And he rattled the doorknob as though he was about to come in and shouted, come out, whoever you are." And immediately the voice boomed out, "Go away!" Jackal was alarmed and he stepped back a few paces. "This is Hare's house," he shouted. "You shouldn't be in there. Who are you?" And the voice replied, "I am the long one. I eat trees. I trample on elephants. And if you don't go away, I will trample on you." "Oh!" Jackal jumped back and he too started to tremble. He turned to Hare. We'll have to act together to deal with this. If I charge at the door with you and break it down, perhaps that will frighten the monster so much it will run away." "Oh, no," wailed Hare. "The monster might be huge and not care if there are two of us, and even if the monster goes, I will have a broken front door and I don't know how I shall mend it." "Oh, well, if that's not good enough, I suggest you find someone else to help you." And Jackal ran off with his head in the air. Hare sat back down on the ground and sobbed, and the sound of her sobs drew Monkey down from some nearby trees. "Hare, why are you sobbing?" asked Monkey. "Oh," cried Hare, "there's a great monster in my house, and I daren't go in there, and it won't come out." "What a cheek," said Monkey. "We'll have to do something about that." and he hammered on the door and shouted, "Ooh, come out, whoever you are." But from inside the voice called, "Go away!" "Ooh, ooh, ooh, this is Hare's house," shouted Monkey. "Ooh, ooh, come out, who are you?" And the voice replied, "I am the Long One. I eat trees, I trample on elephants, and if you don't go away, I will trample on you." "Ooh, ooh," said Monkey, and turned to Hare. "Here's what I suggest. I'll climb up to the top of your house, and I will take the tiles off the roof and throw them down onto the monster until it runs out of the door." "Oh, no," said Hare. "If you do that, I will have no roof on my house, and the rain will come in, and that will be no good." "Ooh, ooh, 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 ooh," said Monkey. "Well, if you don't like my suggestion, you'll have to find someone else to help you." And he tossed his head in the air and ran up into the trees and swung away. Hare sat down in front of her door and howled. But very soon along came Woodpecker.
"Hare, why are you howling?"
asked Woodpecker. "Oh," cried Hare, "there's an enormous monster in my house, and I daren't go in there. And Jackal came along and said he'd break down the door, and Monkey came along and said he would take the tiles off the roof, and I don't want my house destroyed. Oh, dear."
"Ah,"
said Woodpecker.
"I'll see what I can do."
And he tapped on the door with his sharp beak and shouted,
Come out! Come out! This is Hare's house."
But you know what the voice replied, don't you? "Go away!"
"I will not," said Woodpecker. "Who are you?"
And now you know the reply, don't you? It was, "I am the Long One. I eat trees, I trample on elephants, and if you don't go away, I will trample on you."
"Oh, will you?"
said Woodpecker, and then turned to Hare and said,
"Here's what we'll do. I'll break the windows with my sharp beak, and then I'll fly in and peck the monster until it leaves."
"That's very brave," sniffed Hare, "but if you do that, I will have no windows left, and the wind will blow in and make me very cold. No, that won't do."
"Well, if that suggestion's no good for you, I can't help you."
And Woodpecker flew away. So Hare was left sitting on the ground, crying and sobbing and howling. But then along came Snake.
"Tss! Why are you crying, Hare?" she hissed.
"Oh," cried Hare, "there's a fruminously huge monster in my house, and I daren't go in there, and Jackal came along and said he'd break down the door, and Monkey came along and said he'd take the tiles off the roof, and Woodpecker came and said she'd break the windows, but I don't want my house destroyed, and I don't know how to get the monster out."
"Tss!" said the Snake. "Let's see what I can do."
And she reared up onto her tail and rattled the door handle and cried,
"Sss! Come out, whoever you are."
And of course the voice replied, "Go away." And Snake said,
"Tss! I will not. This is Hare's house, and it's time you came out. Who are you, anyway?"
And the voice replied, "I am the Long One. I eat trees, I trample on elephants, and if you don't go away, I will trample on you."
"I tell you what we'll do," said Snake. "I will light a fire and smoke the monster out."
"Oh, no," cried Hare. "If you do that, you might burn my house down, and then I won't have one any more." "Perhaps if you don't like that suggestion, there's no more I can do for you," said Snake, and she slithered away. So Hare sat down and cried and sobbed and howled and sniffed. But then along came Elephant. "Ho, ho! Why are you so distressed, Hare?" asked Elephant. "Oh," cried Hare, "there's a huge, giant, enormous monster in my house, and I daren't go in there. And Jackal came along and said he'd break down the door, and Monkey came along and said he would take the tiles off the roof, and Woodpecker came along and said she'd break the windows, and Snake came along and said she'd light a fire. But I don't want my house destroyed. Oh dear, oh dear." "Oh, let me see what I can do," said Elephant, and he put his trunk round the doorknob and rattled it, and the voice came out, "Go away." "I will not," said the Elephant. "Who are you?" And the voice replied, "I am the Long One. I eat trees. I trample on elephants. And if you don't go away, I will trample on you." "Oh, said Elephant. Trample on elephants, do you?" And he backed away from the door and turned a paler shade of grey than he usually was. He turned to Hare. Oh, do you know, I have just remembered something I have to do. I'm terribly sorry, I must rush." And off he went, making no suggestion at all. Hare sat on the ground and cried and sobbed and howled and sniffed and then blew her nose on a leaf. But then a tiny frog came hopping down from the tree.
"Rabbit, Rabbit, what's the matter, Hare?"
asked Frog. "Oh," cried Hare, "there's a great monster in my house, and I daren't go in there. And Jackal came along and said he'd break down the door, and Monkey came along and said he would take the tiles off the roof, and then Woodpecker came and said she'd break the windows, and Snake said she'd light a fire, and then Elephant came and did nothing at all, and I don't know what to do."
Rabbit,
said the little frog, and hopped up to the door. There was a gap underneath the door, and Frog very quietly squeezed underneath it. Hare held her breath and listened. There was silence, and then suddenly she heard,
Rabbit, Rabbit, Hare, you can come in now.
Very slowly Hare approached the door, turned the handle. The door swung open, and very cautiously she entered, and do you know what she saw? Well, nothing at first, and then she saw her big iron cooking pot, and on its rim was the creature who had caused all the trouble. Do you know what it was? It was a caterpillar, and sitting opposite it, on the rim of the pot, was the tree frog, and the frog looked down into the pot and said,
"I am a tree frog, and I live in the trees, and I eat caterpillars, and now I'm going to eat you, Rabbit."
And because the frog was calling into the cooking pot, it made his voice sound large and booming, just as it had done for the caterpillar. And Caterpillar was so surprised, she fell off the edge of the pot, and Frog leapt onto her and ate her all up.
"Rabbit, that was a very tricky caterpillar indeed,"
said Frog, and off he hopped out of the door and back up the tree, leaving Hare to make her breakfast in her cooking pot in her house in peace.
Thanks for listening. I'd particularly like to thank all our followers in Stockport. We couldn't do this without you. If you'd like to support our podcast, then head over to kofi.com/supergreatkidsstories. And if you like drawing, We'd love to see your super great pictures on Instagram. Tag us at Super Great Kids Stories. And finally, if you want to tell us about your favourite story, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/supergreatkidsstories or our website supergreatkidsstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. And remember to like, subscribe, follow and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.